Long time no see, everybody.
So how are you?
I am fantastic, man. How are you?
I'm well.
And
Well, we'll wait a minute or two and get everybody to join us. And I'm going to mute everybody just to get the noise kept down. We'll give it another minute or so. Everybody can hear me? Thumbs up, somebody? Okay, cool. You guys can see the shared screen now. Good deal.
Scott, when you save this, are you save it to like high definition? Is it something special that you're doing or just
Well, it's just
natural?
it's the way it's being recorded. And so when she did the editing, for whatever reason, it saved it in standard definition, so it's not quite as
The resolution is
the
not as
resolution.
yeah.
Unfortunately, because I think I said this before, my bachelor's degree is in broadcasting. I'm spoiled. So
No, actually, there's a difference. You can see it in the video. If the letters are smaller, it becomes more blurry too. So,
yeah. If you
I,
compare that to the original, it just looks
yeah,
more fuzzy.
yeah. So I think you're using. I think the standard is 720. I think she
Yeah,
downgraded it like
versus 1080. Yeah.
yeah, and if you choose a lower number, it's less memory, but like you said, it's fuzzy, and so it's just a matter of selecting the highest grade.
Yeah.
But
So
yeah,
she could go back and just take that and do the same thing and save it as HD. When I go to the YouTube channel and I process it, it doesn't take any longer. It just saves it in the higher resolution.
okay, yeah, yeah, we'll get that done.
Okay, thank you, buddy.
Yep.
And I will record this once we get going. All right, so we got, according to this thing, 14 participants, which is a bit more than we had last time. And I'm going to give it one more minute and then we'll get going. And I see a bunch of people that weren't on the last one, which is cool.
Blowing up, man.
Well, we'll see.
We'll want to be in the know.
Yeah, and I see Megan she's down in the Bay Area on Half Moon Bay, so
Ah,
her
Bay Area.
connection is much better.
And I think Bay Area, I'm thinking like Oakland and California, Bay
So
Area.
yeah, she's over in Half Moon Bay right now. So
Okay.
yeah,
So Megan, where are you from? It's not
you
California,
got
right?
to Megan, you got to unmute if you're going to talk. The microphone down the left side of your screen in the bottom. Might be covered up by the
You
splash
can
screen I put up there.
you can ping her as well. If you ping
Yeah.
her unmute, then
Yeah, but it
shows
it
her what to
might
do.
not give her.
Got it.
There
Can
we
you-
go. Cool.
Got it. Oh, I'm originally from Half Moon Bay.
Oh, okay, that's home sweet home. Okay.
Yep.
Okay, and okay, so you're some reason I had the impression that you were um a country gal.
Well, she
Well,
lives
cool.
she lives
My-
up in
I-
up north of Sacramento now, up in the hills. So
My
Okay.
dad lives in Half Moon Bay, and then my mom lived up in Amador, so I had the best of both worlds.
Got it. Got it. Okay. Because I had this somewhat impression, so I'm glad you got that.
My dad was a fisherman in Half Moon Bay, an abalone diver.
Oh,
So he was like, ocean country.
yeah. Yeah, yeah. So how's the weather there back in good old I'm in Michigan now, so it's
Oh, it's beautiful.
rub it in, why don't you?
It's sunny, kind of cold. It's like maybe 60 degrees, but not
I
as
didn't
cold.
mean it when I said rub it in. I didn't mean it.
but not
How cold
compared
is
to
it in Michigan?
not
It's
compared
you
to
know, it's starting to warm up
three-quarters.
actually.
Not
It-
compared to
it's-
3/4 of the people on this video. I'll tell you, I've been talking to people and they're like you're really cold.
Yeah, it's actually starting to warm up relatively speaking. I mean, it's I think it was like 20, 25, 26. So
Oh.
few degrees below freezing, 32. We're
Cold.
still
So cold.
freezing. Yeah.
It's warming up to 26.
Yes. It's about almost golf weather.
Oh, well, we're halfway through winter.
All right, well, let's get going. So we don't tie everybody up all day as much as I'd love to talk about all this. All righty. So what we'll do is kind of do a little bit of a recap of what we did last time. So this series is because we got some new participants here. So this series, there's a video that is available in the chat in the group me. We're going to update it a little bit and kind of clean up some of the gaps and that kind of stuff. This is going to be a series, and pardon me why I kind of explained this before. I got two monitors, so I'm kind of looking in both directions. Cameras in front of me, and some of the presentations up here on the right. This is a series of presentations on how to have a conversation with your prospects and leads, and determine really what prompted them to get in touch with us in the first place. And everything that we will follow with the initial presentation, as well as with just future presentations, will stem from that motivation that we determine in our initial conversations and everything that follows from that. So we talked about in the first presentation really kind of came from some people that really had some pretty good ideas around talking to people. And I took a Dale Carnegie course many years ago. And one of the things that stuck out from his initial, one of the first things I learned from him was he said something that was kind of a, well, no kidding. People do business with people they like. I mean, that's kind of a natural, right? And then Ben Feldman said, most people buy not because they believe, but because the salesperson believes. And then, Steve Jobs, everybody knows who Steve Jobs was. The really great person will find the key underlying principle of the problem and then come up with the beautiful and elegant solution that works. Well, we all know that, Apple has done all that and almost everything they've come up with. Very few of their inventions have failed. And then buying motives, and this is really the crux of everything, buying motives are 1,000,000 times more powerful than selling skills. So you really don't have to be good at selling if you understand motivation. So really in a nutshell, our first session was this. You get the lead. Read the lead. I mean, everybody knows what a lead looks like, right? If I can find one on my desk here. If I can find one on my desk here. I thought I had one handy, but I will find one. Give me a second here. you'd think I'd keep them organized, but if you saw my desk, you'd know that's not necessarily the case. But everybody knows what a lead looks like. Hang on, I'll find a lead. Never mind. You guys know what a lead looks like. Oh, here's one right in front of my face. Read a lead, right? Here's a lead. Read it. And we'll go over a lead in detail in a minute. Read the lead. Introduce yourself and set your role and purpose. Explain to them why you're here, why you called them. Set the expectations of the call. And then review what we're here for. Find out all the whys. Then using the client qualification information form, begin to discover and uncover any health issues, prescriptions, and personal issues to the point where you start to lose them. Do not, you remember, you called them cold. They didn't expect the call. You've dialed a bunch of times, you got somebody on the phone, but you got to really read the room and understand, kind of sense that if you're beginning to lose them, don't go any further. Really stop at that point and make the appointment to follow up. Get as much as the CQI filled out, and we're going to look at a CQI here in a minute. And sense when you're losing them, make the appointment. Okay, Mr. or Mrs. Client, I got what I need. How about we reconvene? I'll come back with some solutions. We'll talk a little further about what we can do. And I'd like you, and if there's going to be a second person that's going to help make the decision, like both of you to be here. How about tomorrow at 2, or does 5 o'clock work better for you? But stop and get off the phone. You don't want to get them any more frustrated with you keeping them unnecessarily. So prior to the next appointment, you've got to do some things about what you've learned so far. So review the client's whys. And so we're going to do now, let's do this. Let's stop the share, bring up let's look at so here we have, and we used Brandon in the last meeting, in the last session. And what we're going to do here is we're going to put Brandon up here. And we're going to put, if you can see this, tell me if this works for you guys. Can you see these? Assuming it comes up side by side. Can you see the lead on one side and the CQI on the other? No. Hey, Damian, unmute and tell me what you see.
I just see the lead. It looked like you were pulling it up like on the bottom left corner, but whatever else you were trying to do went away. So I just see the lead.
Okay, it's filling up the whole screen.
It is.
Okay, if I do that,
at a time, if you wanted to share both of them, share your screen instead of just one item.
okay. So do
Share
that. Okay, so let me stop that. Okay, thank you, Grayson. Let me see if that'll do that, and then allow me to share that together. Let me see that. Let's me do that together.
It should say share entire screen.
Yeah, it's not giving me that option. Okay. All right. Apologize for not having this one more readily available. So what I'll do is I'll go back and forth. Let's see. Just want to make sure I got them both. Okay, well, I'll do them one at a time. That's what I'll do. Okay, so in looking at what we'll do is this and make that full. Okay, so now you're looking at the CQ at the lead sheet, right? Okay, all right, so we got Brandon, and in the last session, we talked about how to read this. I mean, look at him, he's got Brandon, he's 40 years old. He lives in Maricopa, which is a suburb of Phoenix, right? And Surprise, a suburb of Phoenix. And he's male. We know he's got a co-borrower. And in our conversation with him, we determined that, now I got to find the other one, bear with me. Thought I had it up here a little easier, and I thought it was in the same place, but it's not. Okay. Can you now see the CQI form? Nope,
It's on
okay.
the lead right now.
Okay, so I gotta stop the share and go back to the CQI, okay. All right. So from that, okay, so now you got the CQI form, right?
It's coming.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay, so in our initial conversation with Brandon, this is what we learned. We didn't get everything. Brandon started to get a little annoyed. We cut too much of his time. And so we learned that Brandon's 40. This is his birthday. He's a non-smoker. We had that from the lead sheet. We learned that his wife's name is Barbie. And we learned that she's much younger than him. Okay, she also doesn't smoke, but we didn't get height and weight on either one of them. We know that he has high blood pressure. And we know that she doesn't take any she doesn't have any health conditions, although she did deal with postpartum depression. So we learned. We know that he takes one med for his high blood pressure. So we know. Okay. Here's what we know. The mortgage is $400,100. It's a 30-year term. And that it said on the lead sheet it was Click and Close, which is a brokerage. So we went ahead and asked the question, who's the actual mortgage with? And it's with Envoy. He's a neurologist. And she's a stay-at-home mom. They got kids. They got a newborn. And he's got two from a previous marriage. So we learned all that. That's what we know. And we set up the new appointment for Friday at 1 p.m. Yeah, 1 p.m. And it's a Zoom call. And we confirmed, and that's in now this is in our appointment notes that she'll be there. So that's what we got. So when we go back to the appointment and go back to our our PowerPoint, we've got our CQI filled out. And here's what I do. I'm looking at the whys, which I've determined a little bit. We know he wants to cover the mortgage. And if we don't understand any of the medical terminology, I'm going to look it up. Now, I understand the medical terminology. High blood pressure, I understand. I know he's taking a med, although I don't know what exactly his med is. I'm going to have to determine that in the next call. And then anything I don't understand, I'm going to Google it before I even do the next step. Okay? Then I'm going to go to Navigator. And I'm going to actually run some preliminary quotes myself. If I'm sitting here as a new agent, before I even go to the next step, which is to talk to my mentor, I'm going to run some preliminary quotes myself. Just take a stab at it. So let's do that. Not the one I wanted. Bear with me a second here. So you go to Navigator, bring it up. And we're gonna run a quote. Just doing this for all people that I've got some new people on the calls. Just running this through real quick. Enter the client information in. I'm gonna just pick one here that's already here and run in the quote. We got his information in there. Run the quote. And then basically, I'm gonna have this up when I call my mentor. So basically, guys, what we're gonna do then is talk to the mentor. So in this case, I'm going to use Davion. So Davion, unplug. I'm going to be the new agent, and Davion's going to be the mentor. And we're going to have a conversation. And we're going to use the CQI. And have this conversation. So Davion, I've got this guy, Brandon Smith, and I'm going to talk to him tomorrow at 1 o'clock. And I want to really have an idea of what to do with him. I know I need to get some information around his height and weight, but here's what I'm thinking. He's 40, he's in good health, he's got high blood pressure. I run a quota navigator using SBLI with a $400,000 mortgage. I think we can get him most likely at either preferred or worse standard, or maybe standard plus, something like that. Maybe even through Banner. Because he's got a young wife, I'm assuming he's going to want to cover, as we talked with him, he wants to cover the entire mortgage. Any other suggestions in terms of what you're thinking? Am I going down the right road?
Well, yeah, I think based on what I see, his health appears to be good enough where he can qualify for some of the better plans. Her as well. Don't know the height and weight, but assuming that they're not, the bill isn't too far out there. I think, yeah, if that's what he's wanting to protect that entire mortgage. I think we definitely have some options to do that. Now, he's the primary breadwinner as far as you know, or
Yeah,
both
she
of
doesn't
them
work. She stays at home with the kids. So
okay.
I'm thinking, and we also probably want to think about, if I'm not wrong, insuring her. Because we got daycare issues in case something happens to her.
Exactly.
Those kind of things. But is the postpartum stuff going to get in the way?
No. No, and I would look at SFG quotes. That's my favorite tool. This is what I would say to any agent. Go to SFG quotes and you can look at depression, and then we can get a firm comfort level that that's not going to cause any problems for her. with some of the main carriers that I would be looking at, SBLI and then LGA, if we're looking at, term products, low-cost term products, immediate instant approval, generally speaking, and maximum compensation. We're gonna look at all those things. And so I'd be looking at SBLI and LGA, but I might do a quick check for the depression, make sure that that's not something that shows up as a concern using SFG quotes. I don't think there's a need to call the insurance company because there's nothing really severe here. So I think you're definitely on the right track. I also would be considering something like a return of premium as an option. What we typically do, we'll show 3 options. That's just historically how we do things. And then we're kind of making sure that we're putting enough window around those where we feel that they're going to fit into one of those categories and have them choose, or if neither of those fits, then we can tune in between that window if we have to go outside. So we're going to start with 3 options. And I would be thinking return of premium because it looks like they can get a good rate for that. Maybe 2 options with the return of premium, and then something that does just what it needs to do. Pays off that $400,000 if something happens to either one of them for the life of that mortgage. I'm assuming it's a 30-year mortgage.
Yeah.
So that's going to, so that would be my thinking in terms of a first shot at this.
Okay.
Return of premium for both of them, 30 years, and then for the full 400, and then we could do a partial mortgage payout, maybe half that amount, 250 for each of them, for example, and then an option where we've got 400,000 without the return of premium, and that's going to do just what they wanted to do, protect that home, not looking at any money at the end, after 30 years. But I think it'll be attractive to them to have that option to get some money back after the 30.
So here's what I'm thinking when I look at this. He's a 40-year-old neurologist. So we got to assume a decent income. And we got a young wife, but he's also got 2 kids from a previous marriage. So we also got to think about alimony, maybe, and child support. So that's what we're thinking here when we're doing the upfront discovery and the first call, and we're getting as much information as we can. We got to start thinking about this in terms of what's the whole picture, and that's why that back and forth conversation that goes on. And remember, in our session a couple of weeks ago, we're really having a conversation that while we're not doing an interrogation, we are asking questions that elicit responses that we can then kind of fill in the blanks a little bit. And so, neurologist, okay, great income, but obviously divorced or widowed. If he's widowed, obviously there's no alimony or child support. Those kids are living with him. But if he's divorced, and that's a question you want to ask delicately, you want to find out, okay, you got to assume at that point, if the kids are young enough, and at 40, they're most likely young enough, that he's paying child support and most likely some form of alimony. So that's cash going out. Now he's got a young wife with a new kid. And so he's got to think about, how do I take care of them? And this is all part of what goes into the memory bank and the thought process about how much can this person afford. But as Davion said very correctly, ROP, possibly an IUL, things that make sense to create retirement or lump sum savings down the road. Okay, so now what we want to do, we've got this, because we're now on the next call, what we want to do is move on to the actual appointment. So we want to role play with the mentor and kind of talk about uncovering hidden objections and or anything that might change the original assumptions. And that's what we're going to do with the mentor. And now that you've done all the other things for sure, there's only one thing left to be. Now that you've done all these things, there's only one thing to do for sure. Understand that when you do talk to the client, it's all going to change So be ready. It's gonna be different than the way you assume. I guarantee it. No matter what you do and what you prepare for, it's going to be different. Something is going to happen in that conversation that is going to make it different. So if it's a Zoom meeting, there's gonna be one or two types of meetings, maybe a third, possibly face to face. But if it's, here's prior to the appointment. Make sure these things are done prior. I did this prior to the appointment. I made sure my camera and microphone worked. I made sure the meeting link worked. I actually tested it. I sent a reminder 60 minutes prior, whenever I have a Zoom meeting with a client. You guys, I sent it out yesterday and again this morning. I did comb and brush my hair. I did check my smile. If it's a phone meeting, I did the same thing. They get reminders. I always make sure my phone is charged or it's plugged into the charger. I have a Bluetooth headset that I always wear if it's a phone. And I do comb and brush my hair even if it's a phone meeting. You'll be amazed how much difference it makes if you do those things, even if you're on the phone. It comes through. On your computer, prior to the meeting, have open in Windows, the lead, anything you've got in a CRM, in Switchboard, your notes, the CQI, Navigator open to the client. I didn't do a very good job of that today. The carriers being considered that are not in Navigator. Eventually everything's going to be in Navigator, but as of today, it's not. A lot of them are. And the cheat sheet from SFG Quotes. Have it open, because what we say on the previous two slides, things are going to change. You're going to want to be able to look at it and see. On your desk, as I do right now, have a legal pad and something to write with. And any reference material you may need, you think you may need, that's not on the computer. Whether it's, I actually keep not only the lead on the computer, I have a printout of the lead. And I write on the lead, because I don't type fast enough. So I actually write on the lead. In fact, you can probably see on this lead, I got notes on the bottom. I just happen to do it that way, then I put it in to Switchboard. Okay, so this is kind of the notes from the role play. I'll reintroduce myself to the client and kind of do all this stuff all over again. So what we're going to do here is I want to role play that conversation, and I want to have a volunteer, and I'll throw back up the CQI. So who wants to be the agent? And like I said, I'll throw the CQI up because we got about 20-25 minutes, and I want to leave some time open for questions. But I'll throw the CQI up, and I'm not expecting you to go deep into because I'll throw some roadblocks up, but we're not gonna be able to pivot into the resolving the questions, but I want to just have some time to be able to deal with how you do the pivots and that kind of stuff. So of the 16 people that are here, and I can't see all of you, actually I can. So whoever wants to be that person, or else I'll pick one at random. What I'll do is close my eyes and move the cursor around. Who wants to be the guinea pig? Lindsay Marie did the last one, and she was brand new, and she did great. But I'll count down from 5, and if somebody doesn't raise their hand, I'm going to pick one. So 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, here we go. I hate to say, Jordan. That's where it ended. So unmute yourself, and what I'll do is I'll throw the
knew it.
CQI up. Give me a second. Let me get the CQI up. All right. There are no bad role plays. Just know that. Okay. You guys can see the CQI? Yes? Okay. All right. So let's pretend it's a Zoom call, and I am Brandon, and Barbie is sitting right next to me here. And we'll just pretend that Barbie has a bad cold and she can't talk. She's got laryngitis. So I will do the talking for Barbie. And you've got this information. And if you remember, $400,000 mortgage. Let me make this a little smaller so you can see all the data on here. Can you see all that good enough? Okay. We'll just take it from there. Let's assume that we're all joined here, and remember that we want to establish the rapport and have a conversation, and you want to do this in a way that doesn't seem like an interrogation.
And this is from the appointment, correct?
And now having the appointment, you've already had the first call, and we're now meeting at the appointed time.
Okay. Ring, 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 ring.
Well, we're here. We're on the Zoom. We've all
Hi, Brandon. How you doing?
arrived. We've all arrived.
Oh.
Connect with us.
Hi, Brandon. How you doing? Oh, it keeps cutting out.
Hang on, my computer's acting up.
Okay.
Give me a second here. Give me a second. Okay. Can you see me again?
Yes.
Okay, sorry about that. But being with me.
Hi, Brandon. How you doing?
I'm doing okay, and I apologize. Barbie's here with me, but she's got a terrible case of laryngitis, so I'm going to be the one talking.
Oh no. Well, I hope she gets feeling better. Tell her to drink some tea. Maybe that'll help.
Well.
So I was able to find some options for you. I found 3 options, and I just wanted to kind of go over what we had talked about previously and see if anything had changed, or if you remembered something that maybe you forgot or we just didn't discuss. And then we can go over those options and see which one works best for you. Does that sound good?
It sounds fine. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay, perfect. So I have that you are 40 years old. That has not changed since the last time we talked, right?
No birthdays. It was
Okay, perfect.
coming up in May, but nothing so far.
Oh, that's exciting. Okay, and then Barbie is 24, and
Mhm.
both of y'all are not smokers. Is that still true?
That is still very true.
Okay. And then the only medical concerns that you have is high blood pressure, and she was dealing with postpartum, correct?
Yep. Still doing a little bit with it. The baby's about 2 months old, but doing okay. I mean, it's just doctors working with her to kind of deal with it. Yeah.
As a mom of 2, I know that can be very difficult to deal with, and
Yeah,
so
yeah.
I
I know a lot of women go through this, and it can be somewhat severe at times, but so far, she's doing okay with it.
it's more common than people think, and
Yeah.
so know
Yeah.
that she's not alone in this.
Yeah.
And so she's not taking any medication for that.
No, not at all. She's
No? Okay.
getting some going to a support group and talking to a doctor about it, but right now, no meds.
Good. I'm glad she's getting in a support group and that has proven to help. So I'm so glad she's in a support group. And then you're only taking one medication for your high blood pressure?
Yeah, just one
Okay.
that it's I think it's a beta blocker is what they call
Okay, perfect. Okay, is there anything else that we didn't discuss last time that you remembered or something came up that I need to know about?
No, let me stop you for a second and ask the rest of the group to chime in. What's the missing information that she probably should have at this point before she dives into a any kind of product conversation?
I think she needs to talk about her role and purpose.
Well, she did that probably on the first call, but yeah, probably could re-emphasize that a little bit. But that's I think that's good in terms of just talking about, well, I'm here as your advocate and to talk to the to work with the carriers to advocate for you to get you the best possible insurance for the kind of needs you have and make sure that we got those taken care of. But that's not what I'm looking for here. There's a glaring open box in the first section that is really important to life insurance.
Oh, height and weight.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
I mean, it's kind of important in terms of trying to get a rating. And so the way I usually deal with that is I say, you know, life insurance is about two things, your age and your health. And one of those things in health is body mass index, BMI. So in order to get that, you know, what's your height, what's your weight, and then Barbie, your pre-pregnancy height and weight. That's kind of the way I deal with that, and just get it. That allows you to go back in a navigator and just put those numbers in. That's kind of important in just getting that, because especially when you're talking on the phone in the first appointment, you don't have that. And in this first appointment, I purposely left that off, the CQI, because we're going to have to get it. Now, reality is now we're looking at them and we probably could guess that they're not, you know, if they're truly not, you know, normal height and weight, we're going to see that, but we don't want to guess. So we're going to ask the question. And the other thing that happens oftentimes with particularly somebody who works out a lot is that you get somebody who may be 6 foot 240, which makes them at the high end of a BMI scale, but it's muscle mass. But BMI charts don't care. But you got to know that. So when you go back to talk to the underwriters, you can say, hey, this is muscle mass. It may not make a difference. And that's one of the real weaknesses of BMI only, but you at least got to know it. So anyway, continue on, and let's assume that so go ahead and go back to that, and let's see how you get to there.
To the height and weight.
Yeah, let's just go back and just kind of
Okay.
replay that a little bit.
Okay. I know one of the things we didn't talk about before was how tall you are and how much you weigh. That does factor in to like how much it would be.
Yeah, what you want to go is really the easier way to get there is, you know, life insurance is based on two things: health and age, and part of that is your height and weight.
Okay.
And just it's an easier way to get there.
Okay. So health insurance is based on two things, health and your age. And it seems you are pretty healthy. So we just need your height and weight to verify that.
And just, so how much do you weigh
Yeah, how much, so how tall are you and how much do you weigh? And same for Barbie.
And as a guy, and so the guys here, one of the real delicate things is asking a woman's height and weight. It is very, maybe it is for me, maybe it isn't for somebody else. I can tell you that I hate asking that question. So I always do it this way. And it almost always gets the same response, and I always get an answer. I say something like this: my mother always told me never to ask a woman this question, but I have to when I'm talking to a woman. How much is your height and your weight? And I always get a good answer. They always tell me, but I always preface it by saying my mom always told me to never ask a lady this question. And then I ask them the question and I always get an answer, but it really kind of smooths over asking a lady this question. And maybe it's generational. I don't know. I come from a generation where you never ask that question. But you know, I can promise here's the God's honest truth. I don't know how much my wife weighs. I've been married for 43 years. I just don't know. I've never asked and she's never told me. So that's just the truth. And we'll probably never know. And I'll leave it that way forever. So it's just.
Can I say something real quick, Scott?
Yes, sir.
The way you had this set up, I think it was Brandon was there, but Barbie wasn't. She was ill or not
She's
feeling well.
sitting next to me, right? She's sitting here, but
she's still there.
she's got laryngitis and she can't talk.
Okay,
So-
and some, okay, gotcha.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
And
man.
I say the same thing as you, but if she weren't there, and actually I'm glad she's there because it would have been a one-legged, which is we
Yeah,
don't necessarily want to do.
right.
But I ask it very much the same way. Sometimes I'll just say, if you had to guess, 'cause,
Yeah.
like you don't know your wife's weight, right? And he
Yeah,
probably doesn't.
yeah.
If you had to guess, what would you say? And then
Yeah,
they
exactly.
think about it and they give me a number.
Exactly. And you know what? And we're always wrong. So.
And I'll never tell her you told me but she's right
Yeah,
there.
it's exactly it. I mean, it is truly one of the most uncomfortable questions I ever ask. I hate it. But you got to know. You got to know. So, anyway, so that's good. I mean, we're there, and now what you're going to do, because we're not going to go into the quoting on this call. We're going to do that's part of the next session, because we're actually going to run through Navigator and then the actual presenting of the premiums in the next session. This is really meant to get us to the through the CQI. So what I want to do now is I want to turn it around, and I want anybody want to play Brandon or Barbie, I don't care which, and I'll be the agent, and I'll kind of give you my way of doing this. This is an easy one, guys. Megan, go ahead. Why don't you go ahead and unmute, and we'll turn it around. You got to find the little microphone thing again, don't you?
Okay,
Okay, good. Okay,
I am
cool.
muted.
You did.
Okay.
You're unmuted. Okay. All right. So let's assume we all joined up on the call, and now you'll be Barbie. Okay.
Okay.
All right. Barbie doesn't have laryngitis anymore. Miraculously, she's cured. All
I'm
right.
feeling-
So, all right. So Barbie, I appreciate you and Brandon joining us. And I know that Brandon's sitting next to you, but he's got laryngitis. I know you're going to do the talking. So I appreciate this. And I know that on our last call, we talked about on the phone about certain things about what you're looking for. I know you're trying to cover the mortgage in case something happens to Brandon, but we also want to talk about you a little bit. And honestly, if something happens to you, God forbid, Brandon needs to be able to do things like cover daycare and that kind of stuff, just in case he's got to continue working. So the daycare piece. So we'll talk more about that in detail a little later in the conversation. But right now, what I want to do is go over some things that we didn't get to in the conversation we had before. So Brandon's 40 and you're 24. You guys got the one baby. Well, by the way, what's the baby's name?
Margaret.
Margaret. Oh, do you call her Margaret, or do you call her Meg, or what do you call her?
We call her Margie.
Oh, Margie. Okay, cool. Well, cool. Well, that's neat. Okay. So I know Brandon's on high blood pressure. Do you know what meds he takes for that? What the name of the med is?
Um, no, I'm not sure, but I can ask him.
Okay, all right. Well, whatever it is, I need the name of it at some point so that we can, when we get to the application process, I can put it in there and know what it is. Do you know what his blood pressure is? Is it well controlled? Does the doctor have him like 120/80 is normal? Do you think it's pretty close to that?
I think it's pretty close to normal. Yeah, the medication seems to be working.
Okay, cool, cool. All right. And I know he's sitting next to you. If he can tell you, great. Do you know what his height and weight is? Because life insurance is based on a couple of things. His age, which we know, and then his health and height and weight's part of that.
He's about 6 feet tall
Mhm.
and he's 200, I would say about 210 pounds.
Okay, so and does he work out a lot?
Yes.
Okay, cool. And then here's one I got for you. And my mom always told me never to ask a woman this question, but I got to because it's all part of the process. Your pre-pregnancy height and weight.
Oh, I'm 5'1" and pre-pregnancy 140 pounds.
Okay, great. Okay, cool. All right, so when I go back and we'll start looking at getting you guys some prices for this, that'll be important to know. Now, when I talked to you guys last, you guys said you were dealing with some postpartum depression. How are you treating that? How are you going about getting that taken care of?
No medication right now, just through therapy, and I'm going to some group meetings with other moms that are going through the same thing, which is
Okay,
I'm finding very helpful.
okay, and
A lot of walking.
a lot of walking.
Walking
Yeah.
the
My wife went through this when we had our daughter, and it was pretty significant the way she dealt with it in terms of not the way she dealt with, but the things that happened and not being a woman and not having a true understanding of what it's like. My understanding is that it can really affect you in a whole lot of different ways. And my heart goes out to you. I know that it can be pretty significant, and I hope that as you're going through it, that it begins to abate, and that because I know that motherhood is incredible, and it's got to be just not fun to go through it.
I think it's going to get better.
Yeah,
For sure.
yeah, and I hope so. I mean, I know that it's just the stuff you see on TV has got awful, and I know that they probably make it seem worse than it is. So I get it. All right, so are you ever going to go back to work? What'd you do before you had the baby? What kind of work did you do?
I was a waitress.
Okay.
Yeah.
Are you thinking of either
and-
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
Oh, I know. I don't want to go back to work.
Okay.
I like being a stay-at-home mom.
Okay, more babies?
I think so. Yes.
Okay.
I'm only 24, so
Yeah.
I'd like to
Okay.
have a couple more.
Okay, cool. All right. Well, cool. All right. So here's what I want to do. I'm gonna do this where I can go through some stuff on our quoting software and look at what's doable for you guys. And I want to present you with some options. I know that Brandon's work is pretty intense as a neurologist, and I know
He's
that
gone a lot.
I know that his income is significant. And we'll get into some of that stuff a little bit in terms of what you guys are doing for retirement. And I'm going to make some suggestions. By the way, I'm a full-blown financial planner. So when I look at this stuff for you guys, I look at it not only for covering and protecting your mortgage and those kind of things, but I'm also going to talk to you about how it can do other things. And not only just protecting the mortgage, but also maybe helping for things down the road, whether it be the kids' education. Because I know that
Whoa.
Brandon's got these older kids that do they live with you, or do they spend time? Is their mom in the picture still?
Their mom's in the picture, yeah, and they go back and forth.
Okay.
So
So
we
you
have
got
them half the time, and then she has them half the time.
okay. And is that? And I hate to even ask the question, but I got to. Is that a good relationship between all of you?
Yes, very good relationship.
Okay, cool. All right. So we can look at things that will help with education. We can look in how to set them up, and even the new baby with Margie, helping her because she's so young, helping her be financially set with things we can do. There's a lot of things we can talk about, but first things first, we want to take care of that mortgage, and then talk about other conversations. How's that sound?
That sounds great.
Oh, cool. All right. So let's stop there. What we're doing is we're having a conversation about a bunch of stuff. And we've also got a lot of information we can use later. And we did it in a very easy conversation.
Yes.
And we've learned motivations too. And if Brandon could talk, he'd be throwing things in too.
Yeah.
All right. So that, let me stop the share here. And start the other share if I could, because I'm running out of time here and I want to get to any questions that may be on your guys' mind. That's the wrong share, dummy. This is what happens when technology is not your friend. There we go. All right, so in what we did here is we uncovered any hidden facts, we picked up any objections, we could pivot if we needed to better solutions, and then we could explain better fits. That's what we're going to do, frankly, in the next conversation. We're also going to be in our next session, we're going to be able to talk about pivoting, closing the deal, and then if you're part of the call this morning with Davion and with Kip, talking about FIFs. So with that, in our last few minutes, questions? Unmute, raise your hand, send up a flare.
Would it be better to try to get the height and weight in the initial conversation?
Yeah, and I left it
Yeah.
off on purpose because I wanted you to sense where we were with their level of, I'm getting impatient, I want to get off the phone. Because remember that first call, you have called them completely cold, and you really don't know how much they're going to get to the point where they don't want to talk anymore.
Okay.
In this case, I just assumed they wanted to get off the phone. That's why I didn't get it then. But yes, if you can get it, great. You want to go as far as you can in that first call without getting to the point where they want to hang up.
Okay. Got it.
Scott, I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
You said that you have to ask during the role play whether or not that's a good relationship between the wife and the ex.
I didn't have to ask. I felt
And you
comfortable.
spelled, pardon me?
I didn't have to ask. I felt comfortable asking it.
No, I think you said, forgive me for asking, but I have to ask. I think that's what you said. But
Well,
anyway,
but I did it as part of my conversational way of talking to them. It was not a checkbox that I put down there. It was
Okay.
part of my pattern in the conversation because of the way I was talking with Barbie / Megan. It was a part of the conversation. I gauged the conversation. Now, if in the role play, Megan / Barbie was being closed mouth, I wouldn't have gone there.
okay. So there's nothing strategic about that. What I was trying to get to, is there anything that you get out of the answer? If it's
Well, there was a great strategic knowing about it. If I knew if it was an adversarial relationship, if what had come out of that answer was, man, she's a pain in the butt and we have to fight for everything, that tells me a lot about Brandon and his ex-wife's relationship. But I felt comfortable because of the pattern going on between me and Barbie at that point. I phrased it the way I did. But if Barbie had been, one word answers, I wouldn't have asked it that way.
Mhm.
And I probably would have waited until I had a conversation with Brandon and asked him. Because in reality, I would have assumed at that point that Barbie and the ex don't have a relationship. And I would ask that question of Brandon. You got to be intuitive about this. You got to really think about, okay, if I got a really great conversation going on with the new wife and I can have that kind of rapport, then I can really feel my way through, okay, man, what's your relationship with the ex? What's really good? But if I got kind of angst going on and it's really truly just feel. And you got to really understand the audience. And there are no hard and fast rules when you're having a conversation. It's really more about how's it going, and it's really how in your head and your heart, how's that going? And when it's on a Zoom call, it's easy to see, but on a phone call, it's, I think, easy to feel, but you got to really be listening. And in this case, I felt that. Now, obviously in this scenario, I know you guys because I've talked to you a lot, and I kind of know you, but I wouldn't have known Barbie. It was my first conversation with her, but I still would have had the same kind of conversation. And again, as I said in the call a couple weeks ago, this is my style. I do this with everybody that I talk to. This is me, Scott, and the way I talk to everybody in the universe. So, and you, Carol, know this. I mean, this is the way I've always talked to you. So if it's, and frankly, it doesn't work with everybody. And so, and if it doesn't work, that relationship doesn't work. And we don't get along. I mean, it's not that we don't like each other, we don't go down the same path. So, you got to find your way of being you in these environments. I mean, this is not, as I said in the initial session, I think the training that you get through Summit and Basecamp is phenomenal. I think it's incredibly great. But it is the foundation by which we do all of our business. But you need to turn it into you and the way you talk to people. If you read the script, you'll be a robot. And nobody will listen to you.
You sort of just want to memorize the key points of the script
Yes.
and make sure you hit on those, but yeah, just feel it out.
But in your words and in your style, and every one of you, we got 16 people on this Zoom call, in your style and in your personality. Because if you don't do it in a way that is you, it'll come across as false.
Scott, I was wondering, I think I had a question based off of what Carol said. Not so much your delivery, but when you ask that question, is there a way that are you asking that question so then you can then sell like a certain type of life insurance possibly to the ex-wife, or if the relationship's good, are you going to go that route for a referral? Like, is there when you get that information, is there some way you're going to pivot around what you're going to offer them or sell?
It's not an overt.
Yeah, that's what I was getting at.
Okay, it's not an overt question for that reason. And I'm sorry if I didn't go down that road. It's not an overt reason. For me, it's an intellectual